Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 podcast, Italian Grand Prix edition. And you better get ready for this one, everybody, because we've got a lot to talk about. Again, 2021 is delivering for us F1 fans. And I hope we disagree. I'm hoping for arguments just to kind of represent F1 Twitter. I think we should probably start with saying hello to our Team WTF1 members who are watching this live. You can also be a part of Team WTF1 where you get live podcasts, exclusive events like our Silverstone track experience coming up, as well as a competition to win an actual drive on the Mercedes F1 simulator. All you have to do is be part of Team WTF1. You can race for us in karting events as well. There's lots of stuff. But that's enough of Team WTF1. Let's talk about our three-word race reviews. At Max Cerny Official, a racing incident. Oh, just drop that in there. Just a big bombshell already. Love it. I agree. Chief.DJ Twins, Big Ric Energy. And at Phoebe Perks, everyone liked that. I'm assuming that's to do with Danny Ric winning rather than Verstappen and Hamilton crashing, although Netflix definitely liked that.
If they show it, because you know what, it was like last year. Of course. They love like ignoring the drama and doing like a special on something else. It'd probably be a Giovinazzi episode where they're like going following him in Italy and whether he's going to lose, and then there'll just be one like 30-second clip of Giovinazzi going, "Oh look, Hamilton and Verstappen crashed," and then that's it.
I think that's great content. I don't know what's wrong with you, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm up for more Giovinazzi. We've hardly seen him in the last.
Yeah, he deserves his own episode, Tommy. You know,
before he goes.
Oh, Max! I want to see more Max content. With the cape in the background. God, sorry, WTF1 founder as well, Tom Bellingham.
Careful.
You're on thin ice there.
Nearly lost my job. Okay, right. So let's start with my three-word race review, shall we? It happened again. Let's just dive straight in. We're not going to fill for 20, 30 minutes talking about how we are. We're going to go straight into the incident because why not? Of course, I'm talking about the crash between Verstappen and Hamilton. As soon as we saw it, as soon as it was side by side into turn one, it was inevitable that they were going to crash. And it genuinely was like the racing gods decided, racing gods or Netflix gods, pay people off, not sure. Both had slow stops. Of course, Hamilton's was a lot quicker than Verstappen's was, but they met they couldn't have been more perfect in terms of just this cauldron of chaos. Let's put it that way. And of course, they crashed. Not surprised. Verstappen, maybe Verstappen. What are you saying? I mean,
that's quite good actually. I like
thank
that.
you.
Literally on the spot with Michael Sassy.
Yeah, it is Verstappen. But maybe this will become a thing. Anyway, Team WTF1 member Ricardo41 says, why do the FIA feel like they have to penalise every incident? To me, wow, God, we need some proper rant music going on here. To me, this was the perfect opportunity to use the racing incident option. Neither driver won out in that scenario, and the reasoning on the FIA document seems odd given previous incidents this year. Norris Perez at Austria coming to mind. What has happened to the quality of race stewarding in the last few years? Mic drop.
How do you really feel?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I thought it was a racing incident. That was my immediate thinking, was that look, they were side by side. Hamilton tried to give him some room, but also was squeezing. Verstappen was going for the move. For me, it's a flat out racing incident, and I'm not having anyone else tell me otherwise. It's my opinion. I'm allowed it. What do you think, Tommy?
I also agree it's a racing incident.
Of course you do, mate.
Why? You know,
I'm
yeah. As soon as I saw it, you're right. It felt inevitable. You couldn't have scripted it any better. That they both managed to have pit stops delayed at the perfect amount of time where they're going to come into the corner at exactly the same time. In my opinion, Max went for a move that was, you could say, risky, but also it was on. You know, he's got overspeed going into the corner. We've seen people go around the outside there. It's not like he's gone for an absolute wild lunge from miles back when he's never going to make the corner. The move was on. And the reason I think it is a racing incident is because at the end of the day, it's two drivers who we've seen before in the season and, you know, aren't willing to give an inch. I think a lot of other drivers, we've spoken about it before, would probably dive out the way because they know Verstappen's coming through no matter what. And it's clear now that Hamilton is at the mindset where he goes, well, I'm going to lose the championship if I just keep diving out the way every time Max sends his car up the inside or outside of me. And I'm not going to take it. And they inevitably crash. And in my opinion, it's a racing incident. And the penalty is a bit of a joke, but we'll go into that later.
Oh, it's a joke.
Oh,
Katie, any stronger words than that?
I mean, before like chatting about whether it's a racing incident or whether a driver's to blame.
Oh, come on. Don't tease people. They want to know what you think, Katie.
Well, my emotion, the first thing when it happened was just, I was so angry and disappointed that it had actually happened because, you know, it might be great for the narrative of the championship to have these two fighting for this championship. Max obviously going for his first, Lewis going for his 8th, which would make him the best of all time or greatest of all time. But like you say, it was just as soon as they got through turn 1, maybe even before that, when you could see Verstappen coming up and Hamilton coming out of the pits, you just thought something's going to happen here. But yeah, going through turn 1, it just, Hamilton squeezed, Max went for a move, and I am of the opinion if I had a gun to my head and had to put a blame on a driver, I would say that it was more Verstappen at fault than Hamilton, but I'm not putting the full blame with Verstappen because I both think they could have done things to have handled that situation differently. You know, we've seen examples in Imola and even at the start of the race yesterday that Hamilton has backed off of moves to stop these crashes happening. But and you know, that's the reason with that chicane there that there is an escape road which Max could have gone down and avoided the whole thing, and there would have been another opportunity, I'm sure, later on that lap for them to try and go for another overtake. However, racing drivers aren't like that. You know, these are two guys that are fighting for a title. Everything is being put on the line. F1 is very much a game of risk versus reward. And in that instance, both took a risk, expected the other to do something else, and they came together. It's frustrating that now we're just going to have even more of this. Hamilton hates Verstappen, Verstappen hates Hamilton. And we saw after Silverstone, like, the amount of media that were asking them questions. Max even got really pissed off with it and said, look, enough is enough. I don't want any more questions on this. But then if they don't want more questions, don't crash into each other. It's quite simple. But yeah, obviously the nature of the accident made it look much worse than it is because of the curbing and then obviously going over and the tyres brushing and lifting Verstappen up over the top of Hamilton's car. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit that, you know, obviously so thankful that we have the halo because that could have been absolutely disastrous. But yeah, it's a shame because we had what was a brilliant race, parts of it. Obviously the first bit was a bit dull, but a lovely race, a brilliant story with McLaren, yet we're sat here ranting again about Hamilton versus Verstappen. So in an ideal world, it wouldn't have happened. And, you know, these two drivers would have found elsewhere on the track to have a good overtake. But it did happen. And
it's going to happen
Verstappen
again.
got penalised for it. Yeah,
and again, many times because no one wants to back up.
Yeah, I want to see them race. It's a shame for them to crash out and us not be able to see wheel-to-wheel battle between Verstappen and Hamilton. But at the same time, it makes this season even more interesting, in my opinion. And the fact I would like to see them race more, don't get me wrong. But the fact this happens, you just know that there's going to be more moments and things like that. So the reason why, going back to my Verstappen comment, is that, yes, I agree with Katie. And I think a lot of people have the same mindset that it was more Max's fault because of the fact that he slightly misjudged it with the sausage curb, but it still doesn't deserve a penalty. Like you have to be predominantly at fault in order for it to be a penalty. Yeah. So that's what the stewards basically deemed that.
Did he hit that sausage curb? Because I've watched it back and I thought it was his rear tyre that hits Hamilton's rear tyre.
I think he goes over the sausage curb and then he's lost control from that, and then he's hit Hamilton's car and bounced up. So,
are you that emotional, Tommy, that you haven't watched it back properly? Or?
No, I've watched it a few times, and I have seen that, like, from the onboard, it doesn't kind of get launched by the sausage. It's like his rear tire sort of rolls over Hamilton's and launches. But maybe I need to watch it again.
You need to watch it again, Tommy. Trust me, 100% he goes over the sausage curb, which then causes him to hit Hamilton. So it's a weird one because I think that as much as Verstappen, I don't think deserved the penalty. I think if he continues to drive this way, he won't beat Hamilton. I just feel as though, not giving an inch when he's defending and whatnot, but then thinking that Hamilton's going to give him an inch when he goes for audacious moves, it's just not going to work. So unless he's crashing into Hamilton for the rest of the season for every single race, he'll be champion. But I don't know. I feel like he just needs to just rein it back just slightly. His aggressive driving style certainly puts him in a great position. He's an incredibly quick driver. He can definitely win this world championship. But I think the mentality side of things and thinking I deserve space at all times, I don't know. I feel like that will maybe backfire on him later on in the season. Maybe when he's not fighting Hamilton, has a similar crash to that, and then Hamilton bags 25, 26 points, whatever. So, yeah, I feel like his mentality maybe needs adjusting just a little bit. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, it's one of those things, I guess, in his mind, he saw, he saw the red mist from the bodge pit stop. And I do agree that it's a little bit more on Max's side because essentially he's going for the move, but he has every right to go for that move because there is a space there. And, you could equally argue, oh, well, Hamilton, why does Hamilton go across? Because they're racing drivers. Of course, Max is going to go for the move. And of course, Hamilton's going to squeeze him as much as possible. Like that was always going to happen. Like we said, the inevitability of it. It's just concerning that it almost feels now, and I don't want to compare the start incident because it's completely different corner. It's a different type of corner. I've seen a lot of people trying to justify their thinking for that one by comparing it to the first one. And I don't think that's right because it's a completely different corner. But what I would say with that is that it's almost got to the point now where you feel like every time Hamilton and Verstappen are together on track, even if it's not ending in a crash, it's ending in someone pushing the other wide, whether that's off the track, or that. So a little bit concerning because, we do want to see wheel-to-wheel racing. It would be nice for this championship where you get to see them maybe, swapping corners time after time. It is amazing for the narrative of it being that kind of Senna and Prost championship where it's so intense. Like we've not had an intense championship fight in so long, in my opinion. You've had little bits, but never like this for many, many years now. So
it feels a bit like Rosberg Hamilton, to be honest, where that started spilling over and they started crashing into each other and squeezing, etc. It doesn't feel like it has as much hostility, though. That's the thing. Like their interviews, we're all kind of being like, can we get some of that?
It could be though that because they're not going back to the same garage after the race, they can go off to their own separate camps, have their bitching sessions, and then come back to the next race. But
they don't have Toto whipping them, saying, "No, you will be nice now, say everything right." Whereas Toto's going to defend Hamilton and Horner's going to defend Max, whatever happens.
Let's loop it back to the actual question, which was from Ricardo 41, about the actual penalty itself and why he was penalised as opposed to it being a racing incident. Well, I guess some people have asked as well about the penalty. I'm not sure if there is a question about that coming up, but the reason obviously is that both of them were out of the race, and therefore, if the stewards deem Max Verstappen as at fault, they have to penalise him in some way. And I guess a 3-place grid penalty is the equivalent of a 10-second time penalty in a race. So that's the reason why they gave him 3 places. But why they actually gave that, the only reason I can think was that they had just deemed him to have, made that fault over the sausage curb and therefore, wiped out Hamilton, and the consequences never taken into account, even though I don't believe that as much as, that's the rules, is that, the consequence doesn't matter. It's just the actual driving and the action itself. But, as Ricardo 41 says about Norris Perez at Austria coming to mind and, kind of comparing it to different instances, it's very difficult because it's a different track, et cetera, et cetera. But look, we have to take it, and that's about it, really. We can't. They could appeal it, couldn't they?
I guess so. I think Horner said he's not, though.
Yeah,
which kind of suggests that it's like, oh, it is what it is.
Because didn't he originally say it was a racing incident? That's what I said. He believed it was a racing incident, but then maybe also feels that fair enough.
Fair enough. If you got a penalty, got a penalty.
Yeah.
It sets a precedent now, though, doesn't it? And going back to Ricardo 41's question, we got to that point, didn't we, where they didn't feel the need to penalise every incident. This goes off on a bit of a tangent, but I've seen a lot of people mentioning, and I think you mentioned it, Matt, as well, that the Ocon-Vettel incident was identical to the Charles Leclerc-Hamilton incident, and they let Charles get away with that one. And then they gave Ocon a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
That era, in like 2019, I think it was after Canada and the big Vettel controversy, they really did go for that IndyCar approach of sometimes you just crash and it's a racing incident.
Yeah.
And they just let it. And now it seems the opposite, where they want to do it.
It's a problem though, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you can't change stewarding like that when people, because that's, I basically said it was almost a carbon copy. I think, some people are of the opinion that Ocon's was a bit worse because he came over from he came over quite a lot. Then there was contact, as opposed to squeezing. There wasn't actually contact, but Hamilton was still run out of road.
Wasn't the Ferrari at Monza?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are saying no, but that's the thing. Like, that's genuinely what people believe, and I'm not gonna go against that because it's Italy, and you can understand maybe the pressure that they feel. They are only human. I don't want to say the FIA are corrupt, but there's been many times.
That leads me on to my next point, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Do you want to talk about your next point, Tommy?
Well, it's kind of part of the next question.
Okay, let's go into that question then. Before we say the whole of the FIA is corrupt. At Sam THFC
your words.
90, I didn't say it. Was this penalty just to balance the books from Silverstone, so to speak? If anything, this event seemed far more middle ground and more of a racing incident. Again, we're in a very dangerous territory if we're balancing books because of, we actually made a mistake in Silverstone or whatever. Let's do this. I don't want to say it. That's still kind of putting it into the corrupt book, in my opinion, and whatnot. Tommy,
referees do it in football, don't they?
Do you want to drop the headline news?
Well, what I will say is that it's not uncommon that we've seen incidents towards the end of the season get penalties to make the title close. And that has happened. And I know a lot, like, I'm not one of those like wild conspiracy theorist people, but I mean, Hamilton.
Sorry, Tommy, I was really enjoying that. Sorry, carry
on. Hamilton has been on the end of it himself. If anyone's been watching F1 for a very long time or doesn't remember this, search the penalty that Sebastian Bourdais got at Fuji in 2008, basically to give Massa an extra place so the title was closer, when it wasn't a penalty at all. I saw something on Twitter as well. Someone mentioned that there was an incident at Monza where Alonso was about 20 car lengths ahead of Massa in qualifying, and they gave Alonso a penalty because it let Michael Schumacher catch up in the championship with Ferrari at Monza. These things do happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there is part of that. I'm not saying, at the end of the day,
I mean, the scandal, if that is the case, the absolute scandal.
I think there'll be a little bit thought of that. It's always happened in Formula One, whether people like it or not. It's not going to get to the point where the final race, they'll just pretend that Max is 25 points ahead going into the final race. They'll penalise him for absolutely no reason. It's not that. But I personally think when they've got a chance to keep the title close, that is part of, something that they've got in their head to do it. They can do that. And I've personally seen it in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me. But then
I'm absolutely loving that tinfoil hat on the top of your head, Tommy. I'm really enjoying it today. Katie,
I can't wait for the comments.
Have you got a tinfoil hat on as well, or?
Well, I think people that listen to the podcast regularly know my opinion on the current state of the FIA.
Hold on. I'm just going to put myself on mute and put my feet up for 10 minutes.
No. This won't be a rant. This won't be a rant. I promise. Yeah, go put the kettle on.
Can I get a recap from your previous rant?
Oh my God, no.
Last time.
Yeah. I think going into 2022 with new regulations for the cars and the tech and everything like that. The rule book needs a serious overhaul as well, which we spoke about after Belgian Grand Prix. And I would very much like it, whether this is Katie's dream world and, I'm living in my own little reality, but having a clean slate almost of the rule book. I'm not saying obviously like just go flipping crazy and make whatever you want up, but something needs to change within the stewarding, whether, and we spoke about it before, but having a permanent F1 driver as a steward rather than changing it up every other race. I think it was Lutzi who is there this weekend as like the ex-racing driver. But yeah, it's getting silly now where
Lutzi was the one on the stewards.
I believe so, yeah.
A previous Red Bull driver.
I believe so, yeah.
That may have a slight test for Red Bull after being dropped. Okay, interesting. Sorry, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on now. Carry on.
That's cool. And yeah, it's getting to the point now where either they're giving out penalties that are consistent with other incidents, and you can't really, unless it's literally mirror image of an incident, you can't really be comparing one incident to another and, giving the same penalty out. Like for this one, for example, obviously the crash at Silverstone was deemed to be a racing incident, but more Hamilton's fault, which is why he got the penalty. And in this, they've deemed it as Verstappen's fault more, and he's got the penalty. And like, I'll go into it a bit more. I promise this isn't a rant, but I'll go into a bit more why they gave him the penalty, although you did touch upon it earlier, Matt. But yeah, it's just getting to the point now where things are either being kept consistent for the wrong reasons, or there's no consistency at all. There's no middle ground, and nothing that in my eyes is fair. And yeah, to me, that's worrying. And the FIA, and I'm surprised by this, they penalised Verstappen for causing the incident, but they didn't look at what I would deem as dangerous in the post-incident things, where Max Verstappen obviously got out of his car, and Hamilton, I'm sure from where he was sitting, he had a freaking car on his head, so he's obviously not going to be able to see Max trying to get out the car, but obviously we could see Hamilton was trying to reverse to get back onto the racing, back onto the grid and race again, which was dangerous. But the fact that Verstappen got out the car, he didn't go to the back wall past the marshal that was there. He walked onto the track, which to me is something that's not even really being picked up on at all. And I personally, I might just be a massive drama queen and overreacting to this. And I know that there would have been yellow flags waved and people would have been going slowly. And I think the safety car was brought out at this point, but drivers should not be walking on the track during the middle of a Grand Prix. I find that very dangerous. And you can even see the marshal yelling at Max saying, come back here. And Max has obviously seen red, he's pissed, he's walking off, that's fine. But I'm surprised that hasn't been looked into. And I'm also reading the chat and people are going off saying, this will not be a rant. Also, Katie. So, yeah. But yeah, the reason that the 3-place grid drop was given, according to the rule books, is that if it is a 10-second stop and go penalty or 10-second penalty, like we saw with Hamilton in Silverstone, if we're comparing that incident, is it says that if the driver is given this penalty during the last 3 laps of the race or as a post-race penalty, 30 seconds is added to their final race time. Obviously, with Max and Lewis out of the race, it says if any of the above penalties are handed out after a driver has retired from the race, the stewards can then convert it into a grid penalty at the next race, which is obviously what's been done there. But yeah, Max gets 2 penalty points for that, which is his first penalty points in a long time, like I think almost 2 years. So I'm not saying that makes Max any less at fault comparing to somebody like Hamilton, who I think is probably on about 4 or 6 penalty points. I'm not comparing the two, but this is the first time Max has done something that the FIA have deemed to be dangerous, and has been penalised for it in that sense. Anyway, thank you. Goodbye.
Interesting. Thank you, Katie. Should have got a cup of tea. But
I'm really sorry. I'm going to have a big drink now.
I'm kidding. Everyone loves it. we interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about one of our sponsors for this episode, ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like using your smartphone without a protective case. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine, but all it takes is one accidental drop onto solid concrete to make you wish you had protected yourself. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack somebody. Just some cheap hardware is needed. Even a smart 12-year-old could do it. And your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal information on the dark web. So why use ExpressVPN? Well, it has an encrypted tunnel, it's super secure, easy to use, and works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. I personally love using ExpressVPN as it's versatile, and you can just turn it on and off at a click of a button, and it enables you to stay protected whenever you need. If I'm abroad and want to watch certain films or TV shows, I can simply use ExpressVPN, and it allows me to access them. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/WTF1. That's expressvpn.com/WTF1, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/WTF1. Right, let's get back to the podcast. Lots of comments there, Katie. I won't address all of them. We'll just go straight into someone else's comments. Tommy's hero that's come out with some absolute tripe. At Jahafli, what do you think about Damon Hill's comments about crashing on purpose when in Silverstone they immediately brushed off those claims when roles were opposite? There is absolutely no reason Max Verstappen has crashed on purpose into Lewis Hamilton, in my opinion. He is on fresh, warm tyres. He wants to get the move done pretty quick. But okay, Monza is difficult to overtake, but that's not something that would have come into Max's mind. All, in my opinion, he's just gone for a really risky move because it's Max Verstappen. He wants to get past Hamilton so that he can crack on. He's had a terrible pit stop. There is no, I want to wipe out Hamilton because there was so much left of the race that anything could have happened and Max could have easily beaten Hamilton. But yeah, I think that is a bit out there, to be honest.
Yes, ridiculous, disappointing. Obviously, like you say, Damon Hill, massive Damon Hill fanboy, and hearing him say stuff like that is.
Have you burnt his merch yet? Or?
No, not yet. Not like the Man United fans burning the Ronaldo. Who's going to go to Man City? No, like it said in the question, so easily could have said the same for Hamilton. We saw in the sprint that Hamilton knew that was his only chance to get Verstappen, and you could do the same narrative of saying, well, Hamilton knows that Max will win the race if he doesn't get him at that point, so he might just as well just crash into him, and they're both on even points from before. That is not the case, and this is not the case. If Max had launched it over the big sausage curbs from an absolute mile back and flown over Hamilton's car, you'd have been like, that's a bit dodgy. That was so desperate. But, and this goes back to, again, why I don't think it's a penalty. The move was on. It's not the most outrageous move. And I don't think anyone would be, like, no one in the world is surprised that Max Verstappen went for that move because it was on, and he does pull off those type of overtakes on a regular basis. So, yeah, no way at all that's even crossed his mind. It's just Max Verstappen being Max Verstappen. He's seeing the chance to overtake his title rival. He's done it. It's gone wrong, and they've collided. The end.
Yeah, I think it was just a case of Damon Hill trying to stir the pot a little bit, to be honest. Generate some interest online and some probably strongly worded tweets at the Sky Sports lot. But yeah, I don't think there is a fibre in my body that thinks that either of those guys did that deliberately. I think hot-headed drivers both had pit stops that didn't go to plan, see their title rival on track. It's very obvious this is going to be a 2-horse race for this title. And
well, not if they keep crashing. Bottas could win.
Yeah.
Heard it here first.
You can't say those sort of things until, and this is where it all horribly goes wrong and happens in the final race. But I guess Damon Hill's like alluding to, like the Schumachers and the Sennas, but they were done where literally it's the final race of the season. There's so much of the season still to go. So much can change. Max could have legitimately beaten Hamilton in that race. He probably wasn't thinking, oh, this is Mercedes track, I'll just wipe him out. If that's happening in the final race when Max is ahead in the championship, then it's a different story. But it's not the case.
I think Damon's just scarred, isn't he? Bless him, from
yes,
Schumi turning in on him all those years ago. We'll quickly move on from that. And this next question, we've kind of touched on it a little bit from Steph XN Reese. Do you think Max will ever back out going into a corner? His mentality seems to be you back out or we crash. I think there is tweaks of his mentality maybe where, just doesn't have to happen every single corner. But that's Max Verstappen. That's what makes him so brilliant to watch, is that he is not scared to go for a move. But that might be what costs him a world championship at the end of the day. So I think we're all in agreement of that, aren't we?
For sure. I mean, we've seen Max can be aggressive with his moves. And also we've seen him try and make passes that realistically there is better opportunities ahead. Like look at Turkey last year, perfect example. He went for a move. He could have easily waited even half a lap and got past, but instead he went for the move there and then. It went wrong and ruined his race essentially. But that's what makes Max. This is why he has so many fans, and I'm so excited to see what he can bring to Formula One in the future, because he is ballsy and sometimes quite unapologetic with the way that he drives and stuff. And there's almost quite like an old school aspect to him in that sense, which a lot of people like and support.
Yeah, he's never. It's just the way Max has driven his whole career. I remember, I think it was after Hamilton maybe was a little bit soft defending from Verstappen a couple of years ago. And I feel like we had a question of, is Max doing his kind of, I'm going to crash into you if you don't get out of the way now, so when he gets into a championship winning car, everyone dives out the way? And I think that is definitely the tactic he has been doing, and he still thinks he can do it. But clearly, like we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of other people would have got out of the way, but Lewis Hamilton knows that he's not going to win the championship if he just dives out the way of Max every time he tries an overtaking move on him. So it's not going to happen. So yeah, Max will never change his driving style.
No.
That is Max.
Well, no, I mean,
not never change it, but
yeah, naturally it comes to him to be aggressive. But I think as he gets older and he has more and more world championship scenarios, I think he'll learn, especially if he doesn't win this world title, he'll learn from maybe the mistakes that he made. And
Hamilton was quite people forget, because you look at him now and him being a very mature driver. If you look at 2007 Hamilton, he was the one that sometimes go for these absolutely crazy lunges. Yeah. If you think of the GP2 overtake he did where he went 3 wide into Maggots and Beckett's, that's sort of a similar scenario where he's just going in there. It looks amazing because the other two back out, but Hamilton has been that guy as well. Maybe not to the same extent, but Hamilton definitely has matured in that way as well. So yeah,
it'll be a force to be reckoned with maybe when Max becomes the mature. We're not going to see, unfortunately, the Verstappen and Hamilton both being mature and fighting because there's such an age gap. But we move on. Team WTF1 member Olivia asks, do you think Red Bull will decide that Max should take his inevitable engine penalties in Russia now that he has a grid penalty anyway? Absolutely. 1,000,000% in my opinion. Red Bull will take the hit. Russia, you can sort of overtake into turn 2. It's a bit of a dead track, but it should be okay. But yeah,
just knows the penalty, doesn't it? And he's got a chance, even if he starts last, to maybe finish 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. And it's not exactly a huge
for this particular occasion. Perez has to turn up because Perez needs to be right in the mix of that Mercedes, especially if the Red Bull's strong and they're quicker than Mercedes on outright pace. Perez needs to get in the mix. Exactly. But I mean, you never know. And, he needs to be in the mix to at least, even if he's behind the Mercedes, if he's ahead of the rest of the field, and then maybe play a few games, whoopsie, I've pulled the throttle a little bit. Max, come in, whatever. He needs to play the team game in this particular instance. So, yeah, should be an interesting one.
Yeah, it makes Makes sense to do that, I think.
Easy peasy. Katie, your 3-word recipe, please.
Mine is he never left, and that is referring to Daniel
Antonio
Ricciardo. Yeah, Antonio Giovinazzi. Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo, after a challenging start to the season and having his entire reputation questioned, which I'll be honest, I'm a big Danny Ric fan, but there were points where I was like, have we seen the last Daniel Ricciardo win in Formula One? I know McLaren was a great team, but he really seemed to be struggling in that McLaren. But something about Italy, maybe it was the pizza, maybe it was just the fact that the McLaren was quite quick there, probably the latter. But he did it. He won a race. And I can't believe it's taken us, like half an hour into the podcast to talk about the fact Daniel Ricciardo's a race winner again. Yay! Very professional.
Not fangirl, just passionate. Cool.
I'm just freaking happy to see him back winning again.
I love how you were like, no, I don't want to see Verstappen and Hamilton crash, but also deep down you're like, yeah, but if they do crash, Daniel Ricciardo wins. So
yeah, but I think he would have. I still think that he might have won that just without them even coming together, because their pit stops did scupper a lot of it. So I'm gonna stick with the fact that he would have won regardless.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Because we saw how difficult it was to overtake at Monza. And he was in a very good position. I am bamboozled as to where his pace has come from, to be honest, round Italy. He was quicker than Lando all weekend, and we haven't seen that pretty much the entire season. I know Lando had a bit of a shocker at Spain, I think it was, but apart from that, he's been outclassed by Lando the entire season. He rocks up to Italy, the one time McLaren get an opportunity to win the race, and he's beaten Lando and taken the victory with a McLaren 1-2. It's absolutely crazy. Tommy, you've got a smile on your face. Why are you laughing?
Just the story you're saying. It's just amazing. It's so wholesome,
you're just
isn't it?
soaking it in.
It's just great. It's just so great for Formula One, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And as much as I love Lando Norris, I said this in Internet Special Reactions, I'm actually glad Daniel Ricciardo won that race, just purely from how much he's been struggling. We've seen such sad shots of him sat on his tyre reflecting, how bad of a race, and clearly just couldn't get his head around the McLaren. But, Lando's had such an amazing season. We'll speak about him and how he sort of, managed that whole race as well in a moment. But yeah, for me, I think Danny Ric needed that victory. Formula One is a confidence sport a lot of the time. And maybe Italy is going to be the turning point now for Danny, that he can now, it might just be that this one track suited him really well and he might go back to being slower than Lando afterwards. But at least he can say in the McLaren meetings, whatever, I won a race. There's no sort of probably questions about whether McLaren will, continue this partnership moving forward in the years to come. But yeah, it was a great moment, wasn't it?
It did get to the point where some people online, are even saying, like you say, he's washed up. Pato Ward's doing amazing in IndyCar. Maybe it's time to put him in if Daniel Ricciardo keeps doing that badly. But like you say, once you've got a win, it's like, well, I've won a race when the car's good enough. So there. Amazing that we've waited that long for a podium. I mean, questionable whether it's a real podium. If you think of all the people that have got a podium before Danny Ric, Russell, Ocon got a win.
He's the 12th podium sitter this year.
Yeah.
12th. Man.
And 8 of the 10 teams have now finished top 2 in a race, which is crazy. 7. But yeah, it's mad. It's absolutely crazy. And yeah, he was just faultless. Like you say, what a time. I'm sure Lando did, as kind of mentioned it on Twitter, he conducted himself very well, because he could have quite easily been a bit sulky and miffed because he's beaten Daniel Ricciardo all year, and the one race where he doesn't is where it's a 1-2 for McLaren. But I think he knows, McLaren are on the up now. It's almost crazy that it's taken this long for McLaren to win, because they have been the third best team, but then for quite a lot of the seasons, really. And every time there's been a crazy race, it's been, Gasly in an AlphaTauri or Ocon in an Alpine, and McLaren must have been feeling like, oh, why can't we be up there when it's a crazy race? Because they're normally the ones that are 5th and 6th on a normal day. So, it's just awesome that I was the same as you, that I love new winners, but I was just buzzing to see Ricciardo win that, because he really needed it. And hopefully it's the sign of it turning around for him, because it was not nice to see, was it? Because that he's a good driver, you've seen how good he is. It just wasn't going right for him. So hopefully it's the turning point.
We'll see. Ocon's not exactly had any sterling performances since Hungary, but we'll see. I think that it certainly will help someone as experienced as Daniel Ricciardo to get out of this slump. So very interesting indeed. Team WTF1 member Connor asks, do you think that this win will kickstart Ricciardo into consistent performances, or is it a one-off result? I don't think we'll really know until we go to Russia. Very different circuit to Monza. It's difficult. Obviously, I am, of the belief that, if your confidence goes up, you're going to perform better. Your mental health you feel better in yourself to take that pressure off your shoulders. So I would expect him to be closer to Lando for the rest of the season after this, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I hope so. It's just the thing is, even if Daniel Ricciardo is now just closer to Lando and on pace with Lando in the races, it's an improvement to what it was before. And then he can go into 2022 on a fresh slate, if you like, a new kind of chapter. And that's the thing, isn't it? When we get to next year, almost those excuses of, oh, well, you've been in the car this long, or etc., go out the window, because they're both starting with the team in a new era. So yeah, I hope this is the kickstart he needed to get back on track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we knew that Monza is going to be a good power circuit. Mercedes go quick here. The McLaren has Mercedes in the back of its car. So you'd hope that they'd be fast. But in terms of the actual track itself, like Ricciardo has said that he's really struggled with the braking of the McLaren, which is why he's been having so many woes this year. So for a track like Monza, you'd think that this probably wouldn't be one of the tracks that would be like best for his kind of driving style if he is struggling with braking, but he did such a phenomenal job this weekend. Like you say, on Friday we had qualifying and he looked mega quick in that, even helping be that toe for Lando and stuff like that. He was still setting some pretty quick times himself, and yeah, he's done a brilliant job. Whether it will kickstart a revival of Ricciardo, I'm not sure. I think there's still a long way to go. Obviously, he didn't win that Grand Prix by luck. He earned it himself, but I don't think it's going to be a case of from here on out, he's just going to be getting podium after podium and stuff, because Lando has been an excellent teammate and had some outstanding performances. So I think that will probably continue, but maybe going into 2022, knowing that he can win as well. We haven't even mentioned that he's now, I think, the 50th driver in F1 history to have won a race with more than one constructor. And that's not something that's been done.
The old brain, lovely.
I love an odd stat me. But yeah, I think it might even be only Sergio Perez that's managed to do that in the hybrid era. So not a bad thing to have achieved, but we'll see. We'll see in Russia. That's another good Mercedes track. So maybe the McLarens will be quick there, but
perhaps they will. We interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about our final sponsor for this episode, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Today, many small business owners are busier than ever. Time spent searching for and interviewing candidates can take time away from managing and growing a business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has made it easier to get to the candidates worth interviewing faster, and it's free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network with over 30 million people in the UK. Focus on candidates with the skills and experience you need. Use screening questions to get your role in front of only the most qualified people. Then, use the simple tools on LinkedIn Jobs to quickly filter and prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates worth interviewing faster, and you can post a job for free. Just visit linkedin.com/WTF1. Again, that's linkedin.com/WTF1 to post a job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Right, let's get back to the podcast. At Hayden J Design, do you think McLaren would have swapped cars if it meant securing the win? I think if Lando was clearly quicker, and of course we had, the Perez's and everyone behind, they may have tried. I don't think Daniel Ricciardo's letting anybody through when he's leading the race. I'm not saying that because he's a nasty person or whatever, but imagine going through such turmoil for so long to then be told, let your teammate through for the win. I don't think he's moving an inch to let Lando through. And fair play to him, to be honest, because I can understand why he wouldn't as well. I don't think he'd jeopardize it in the sense of running Lando off the road. And I think Lando even joked about them ending up the same as what Verstappen and Hamilton did if they did actually race. But yeah, I don't think Danny Ric's letting Lando through if he gets told.
No, he seemed to have quite a sour taste in his mouth after Zandvoort, which had some team orders come into play. So having been in that position, yeah, it's difficult to say because these guys, obviously, if you've got a win in front of you, and being in Ricciardo's shoes, he has had this challenging start to the year, and he probably wants more than anyone to prove the naysayers wrong. He said yesterday, like when speaking to Channel 4, this one is for all the people that have jumped back onto the hype train that have maybe departed this year because of, things not going his way, like welcome back aboard kind of thing. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm sure Lando, although he's happy, best ever result, 1-2 for the team. And he said, I'm here long term. I'm here. I'm a McLaren lad. I want this team to do well. So he's thrilled for that. It's going to be a little bit in the back of his mind that's thinking, God damn it. Like, really? I've done so much and I've got on the podium 4 times this year. And then Daniel Ricciardo comes along after struggling all year and takes the first win in, 9 years or whatever it is. Why couldn't that have been me? But he handled himself very maturely. I think, Tommy, you did a tweet about it yesterday and said how maturely Lando had handled this whole thing. And I agree. And that's only going to be good for him when it is his turn to take that win in the future.
Do you not think we've seen it, like you said, in Zandvoort, and there was another one where, was it Imola, where Danny Ric let Lando through because he was so much quicker? How different the narrative would have been if Daniel Ricciardo simply didn't have the pace and they had to let, and then they're a case of, they could potentially be losing a 1-2. And then they have to let Lando win. And then Lando's kind of got his first win by team orders and Daniel Ricciardo's annoyed. It would have been such a different narrative of that 1-2 than them being happy in the way they were. I'm just, thank goodness Daniel Ricciardo did have the pace, because it would have been, I would not want to have been the McLaren pit wall if Lando was a second quicker and they had to decide, swap the cars, or potentially Bottas and Perez are coming through and winning the race and taking this 1-2 offers. Thankfully, that didn't happen. It's all theoretical, but it's almost not worth imagining about, because we'd be having a very different conversation.
But you don't think that Danny would have let them through, do you?
No, not even if he was, even if he was slower, he would have been like, no chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have the same opinion. Okay. Speaking of you speaking, Tommy, why don't you speak your 3 words?
Mine is Bottas shows worth.
At least not Bottas shows arse, I suppose.
Shows arse, yeah, true.
Drive to survive.
Yeah, we got the old, I guess, back to the old confidence Bottas, where it's not, he can beat Hamilton on his day. We've not seen it for a very long time. And had a brilliant qualifying. It feels like a very long time where Bottas has been able to beat him. He was faultless in the sprint while Hamilton dropped back, flying through the field, making amazing overtakes to get through the field, and then was generally just hilarious on the whole podium ceremony and the interview afterwards, where he was smiling. I mean, that picture where everyone's captioned it, the Clarkson, oh no, anyway, where he's looking at the Hamilton and Verstappen crashing. You just can tell his whole demeanor. He's so much more chilled now. He's got his contract sorted for next year, and it's great news for for Hamilton and Mercedes if he's going to be back up there, because they're going to need him there. And yeah, we did see that kind of old Bottas back in terms of being that solid driver that, can beat Hamilton in the qualifying session and go to the front. It's just, it's a shame. But I mean, it's amazing that he got a podium in a weekend where essentially he had to start the race last. So yeah, credit to him.
Yeah, it was a very good performance from Bottas, something that we haven't seen pretty much all year. And as you say, it's the old Bottas where occasionally he'll get a pole position and maybe a victory. So, I mean, going into Russia, old Valtteri might be fancying his chances once again as well. But I guess the only reason he was allowed to shine was because Hamilton was out of place. But yeah, it's an interesting one. As you say, it's almost as if they need to fire Bottas and then sign him on the last day and then fire him at the start of the season and then rehire him right at the end again. And then you just get the best of Bottas all the time. But you can see that the weight has literally gone off of him now. And it's nice to see, to be honest, because it must be such a stressful thing to be a Mercedes Formula One driver, especially when maybe you're not performing as well. You don't get as great headlines. You get Bottas bashing from people like us. So, it's really nice to see him thriving now. And as you say, could really be a weapon for Mercedes moving forward for the rest of the season. And, then Alfa Romeo next year, he can just have a bit of fun. It's almost like the place you go to retire where Kimi Raikkonen was, and then Bottas is going to pop there as well and have a bit of fun, maybe. I don't know. But will he keep it up for the rest of the season? That's the question from Mand Kips. Bottas's pace was incredible this weekend. Can he keep it up? Maybe. I think so. It could. Well, I mean, we're going into Russia where that certainly is going to happen. But were you impressed, Katie, with Bottas' performance?
I was very happy to see not necessarily old Bottas, because Bottas has always had moments of brilliance, which is why he got that Mercedes drive. But, undoubtedly we've seen that either the confidence has been knocked or something along those lines, which means that he's not performing at his usual self, especially this season. And, nobody really likes to see a driver not really looking like they're having a great time and not being in a great mental space, which is something that I thought that Valtteri looked like he had been up until that Alpha announcement. So yeah, fantastic drive from him. My driver of the weekend, without a doubt. I know Ricciardo fans might not be too happy to hear that, but
what?
I know, but I think
Bottas over Ricciardo. It's fine. Carry on.
He dominated quali. He won the sprint, which I know isn't exactly
WTF1 already.
Yeah. And then to come from the back of the grid through no fault of his own. It's not like he crashed and had to get a new gearbox and start from the back that way. Like, he literally had to take an engine penalty and to fight his way through the grid on a circuit that's been notoriously difficult to overtake all weekend. And to get on the podium, I know, yes, probably wouldn't have been there had Verstappen and Hamilton not had their little incident.
Little mounting.
Yeah. But I thought he did a bloody brilliant job. And we should celebrate these good days more. And I'll be honest, when, Matt, you put Bottas in your top 5 for the race for your prediction, I was like, what is Matt on? This is not going to happen.
See, I believed.
Okay, well done you.
Even knew he was going to start last.
Yeah, I believe in him. Yeah, so good.
I thought he did a good job.
He did do a very good job. We'll get on to who we thought did a better job in ABCDF1 very shortly. Team WTF1 member Levs F1. Was it a mistake on the part of the FIA to pick Monza as a sprint quality testing ground, given the poor overtaking opportunities beyond lap 1? Maybe. I guess the problem is that all these teams were running such skinny rear wings that they basically all had DRS anyway without it even, you could see that the slip was already open pretty much from how they were running the back of the rear wing. So clearly, yeah, the overtaking opportunities were difficult. Are they trying it so that sprint quali only works on overtaking tracks, or are they just trying to test to see if it spices up any of the action at any track. I don't know. I think they probably thought Monza would be a good overtaking track because
It's not though, is it?
no, but it's difficult,
It's a
especially in
weird
DRS
one.
trains. You would think on paper it's a good overtaking track, but when you get stuck in a DRS train, it's a different
Actually,
story.
Woeful.
Yeah.
Overtaking.
But yet we still
really,
get
really
amazing
bad.
races around there. I mean,
You
you
get
think
it.
of the last 3 winners at Monza is Leclerc, Gasly, and Ricciardo.
Because basically you can't overtake almost made the racing good, because like
Mm.
you had that shuffle of the pack and then the people couldn't get through. I mean, yeah, you're right. On paper, Monza seems like the perfect race, like massive long straights, but you just end up in a DRS train. I mean, the sprint was a perfect example that what were Verstappen and Bottas were 10 seconds clear in the sprint,
easily, yeah.
and Hamilton couldn't even attempt to pass on Lando. So
Yeah.
it showed that, you know, he was at least a second a lap quicker and didn't even have a chance. My view on the sprint almost changed constantly, and it's I think you said this on Twitter, Matt, like I've never, other than Hamilton and Verstappen and whose fault it was, I've never seen like the fans more polar split. It's almost like you absolutely love it or you absolutely hate it.
And you're a disgusting human being if you think the other thing to someone else.
Because at Silverstone we were there, so this was our first experience of like being at home, and you get the opposite to a qualifying session where the excitement is all at the start, and then maybe it gets a bit flat at the end. And I must admit, when it finished, I was like, yeah, this maybe could do with a bit of tweaking. It's not perfect. It's still cool. I know Lando said in an interview, maybe we need a hyper soft tire, because we've seen that these cars rely on degradation so much for actual overtaking that maybe if there's tire wear involved. But I mean, they said, you know, they could so easily just run the whole race without any tire problems. That of course it's going to be a procession. The first 20 laps of the race were pretty much a procession, weren't they? Until the chaos of the pit stops. But then that's the second time in a row that we've had a sprint and the race has been an absolute banger. So
mainly because Hamilton and Verstappen are like, crash.
Yeah.
We're going to crash.
1 second.
And it could be a coincidence, or it could be that you've had this sprint, we've had a little test run, the grid is maybe mixed a little bit from the session, Hamilton's further down. I don't know. It's not perfect, but it's a difficult one.
I think it will work. I think the format will work next year when the cars can follow and you can overtake. And a sprint race, I think, then could be very exciting. But, you know, as we've already alluded to, Monza is a very difficult place to overtake. And as soon as it's about to get interesting, i.e. the pit stops, the race ends and the sprint race is over. So I'm willing for it to be tried again next year. I don't want it to happen many times, but I'm also a fan of F1 trying things. So
yeah, I'm always happy for F1 to try new things, because otherwise the sport will become stagnant and it keeps things interesting. But I would like it more if it didn't decide the official qualifying. Like for me, pole is whoever has gone quickest in like a normal quali. Not
can I just?
who?
Sorry, Katie. Oh my God! How has Russell lost his streak through a flipping sprint race? I'm
This is
sorry.
what I mean.
Essentially, he lost his qualifying record because he made a bad start.
Yeah. The OCD in me is like, but he out-qualified him.
But this is exactly what happened in Silverstone with Christian Horner being like, yeah, well, you know, because that's exactly what it's like. You know, we've ended this Mercedes dominance in qualifying because we're on pole. And I'm like, you're not on pole. You beat him in a little mini race. You're not on pole.
Well, they didn't even beat him.
Really angered me. Yeah.
That is the weirdest stat ever, that Max Verstappen has a pole position to his name for finishing second in a race.
So he gets pole position. So Bottas doesn't get the pole position.
No, Max Verstappen gets the pole position to his name. He has an extra pole position. Like that's an extra.
Because Bottas had a penalty.
Yeah.
But he won.
Yeah, but Hamilton
it's
the same
it's
as I can think of Maldonado has a pole, but technically he qualified second, but Hamilton had a penalty. And then Schumacher's.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to mention Schumacher
Sorry to bring
one.
that up.
Oh, God. But yeah, I would like
that
it
was
if...
a poll. It's 90.
Yeah. I will not take it.
69 pole positions. Sorry, Karen. Yeah.
That's okay. I get you're passionate about this, so I won't step on your toes. But I think Sprint has potential. Put Sprint on a Friday, do reverse grid or something like that, and have it so it's its own thing. I don't like the fact that it interferes with the race on a Sunday. Having said that, without the Sprint, would we have had Ricciardo front row?
No,
probably not. Would we have Ricciardo win? Maybe not.
Would Hamilton have won the race easily from pole? Yes.
Yeah, so it has done good things in that it's causing to shake up. But like in exactly what you guys said, the first 2 laps of the sprint are exciting, and then all the hype sort of dies down and just becomes a bit of follow the leader, apart from maybe Fernando Alonso doing Fernando Alonso things and trying to overtake like 3 cars in one corner or something. And although it's not confirmed where the next one, the final one of the season will be, if we go to Interlagos, it's looking very likely that the sprint will be there. But once again, look at previous years we've been racing there. The first 2 laps are normally fairly eventful, and then it's literally just processional until we get the pit stops in like lap 18, 19, 20, and it's going to be exactly the same. Like, just do a 2-lap sprint like we had in Baku. It'd be fine.
I think a sprint would work really well in changeable conditions. I think that's where sprint comes into its own, where you got drivers that could risk it on a certain tyre, stay out, not pit, all that good stuff.
You almost want the jeopardy of the fact that you could risk a pit stop.
Yeah.
And it pay off because you've got such an advantage. Thinking, was that race in F2 where Charles Leclerc made that extra pit stop and went all the way to
Bahrain.
17th and then came through? You almost want that in the sprint race for the excitement, where you don't need to pit, but it's that fine balance between you could pit and it might work out, or you could start on a really super soft tire.
Super
exactly.
Super
That's what you
tire.
need. Like one
Finished
that is going to disintegrate, but
off the line,
you
gone.
might get
quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
maybe not that gimmicky, Tommy, but I know what you mean. It's
gimmicks.
cool.
Tommy likes gimmicky though.
We love a gimmick. Right, Tommy, press the button for ABCDF1, please.
Now it's time for
Okay, right. Remember, you can vote too on the ABCDF1 poll. Visit WTF1.com after the race, and you can vote too. Lovely. Let's dive straight in. Katie's got a notepad out by the looks of
I'm
things.
trying to
She's
find
got
where I put it in my notepad. Hold on.
all
Wow.
the notes. Okay, this could be interesting.
No. I'll just say them and then I'll leave.
And then I'll leave. Okay. Let's start with Lewis Hamilton, shall we? B.
C.
I've written these down because I didn't want to get influenced by your decisions, but I don't think they're going to be popular.
Go on then.
I gave Lewis Hamilton a D for his involvement in the incident.
Outqualified by Bottas.
Was that qualified?
Fluffed the start, ruined his race. He was in a car that should have easily won from pole. It's almost like I was questioning whether it'd be a D as well, but then am I giving that because of Hamilton's high standards or whether it was actually a D performance? So it's tricky.
Yeah, I just didn't think he was that bad in the race until obviously the crash. Obviously, he had a slow pit stop, and had made up a position on Norris on the hard tyres. They'd gone for a different strategy. He was going to come on the mediums. Yeah. Okay. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, because it would be a C for Hamilton if we're going down the middle anyway. So a C from us, and the fans gave Hamilton a B. Valtteri Bottas?
A star.
A.
See, I'm glad you said it, Matt.
Yeah.
Because, he was brilliant and he was robbed of a win. He was robbed of a win because of his penalty. But I can't, I know this is really ironic because they crashed, but I can't help but think a more aggressive driver would have got Perez and then gone after the victory. And
That's my thinking.
and it's you've got
he
to
was
think
on mediums as well.
Yeah, it's his only that could legitimately be, because Hamilton was out the race, his only chance to win a Formula One race again, and he didn't make a run. Like, in my head, I'm not a racing driver, but I would have seen, like, this is my victory here. I at least have to go for it. What's third? I'm leaving Mercedes. Doesn't matter. Don't care about third. This is my chance to win a Formula One race again.
Yeah.
That's why I can't push him up to A-star.
I've got to give him an A-star because of how I've graded his other performances throughout the year. And for me, this was his best performance in the whole year by a mile. And I've given him A's for finishing third in a race that he should have won and not started from the back. So I'm giving him that extra.
Half a star.
Yeah. Extra thumbs up.
It's so close to an A-star, but I'm of the same opinion of Tommy, and he is in a Mercedes. Okay. And okay. God, I can't wait for the comments. The fans gave Bottas an A-star. Verstappen. God.
I've gone for C.
Yeah, I was thinking C as well. No, yeah. I'm definitely giving Hamilton a C if I'm giving Verstappen a C, because I think they're on par. So,
yeah, I've given Verstappen a D for the same reason that I gave
Hamilton
a D.
Katie, no wonder you got your sassy notepad out. Jeez. The fans gave Verstappen a B. So clearly we are just grumpy F1 again. Fans. Sergio Perez.
I went for a C. He didn't set the world alight.
My logic behind Perez is exactly this kind of thing I'd have said about Albon last year, where the two title rivals are out. Bottas is starting last, and you're still finishing fifth.
And he gets a penalty for something that could have been easily avoided. So it's
almost maybe almost a B, but not. It's better than Verstappen, but it's still a C in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, because he had a poor qualifying as well, didn't he? Which
what was he? Yeah, started 8th.
Yeah. It's a C. It's a C. Can't wait for the comments again. Lando Norris, A-star.
A-star.
Oh Jesus, Tommy does not want to give the A-stars out today.
Is it an A-star when he got beaten by his teammate? But he was brilliant. Yes, I think he scrapes an A-star.
I think purely for the move on Charles.
I'm giving him an A-star for getting a third, and then
I think so. I think I'm now just like, does Bottas just have an A-star? Oh, I'm sorry, Bottas. I'll come back to that. I might change my mind. Okay. Daniel Ricciardo, obviously. Oh, sorry. The fans gave Lando Norris an A-star as well. Daniel Ricciardo, A-star. We can move on very quickly from that. The fans also gave him an A-star. Charles Leclerc said it was one of his top 5 performances in Formula One. The bloke loves saying that. I swear he says it maybe every 6
I think he says this every week. I'm not going to lie.
I'm pretty sure it's my top 5 performance in Formula One. I love how he just kind of gives himself a little pat on the back, like my top 5. Well done.
It's either the best race ever or this has been the worst race of my career. Yeah. There's no in between for Charles.
I think it's an A for Charles. He outclassed Sainz.
It's definitely an A. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going for an A.
Yeah.
You think
that Ferrari?
I think he needs level with Bottas for me. I think it's really good.
He looked genuinely upset with that comment.
I look so disgusted. I was like, oh God.
That's cool.
Yeah?
A.
A? Okay. Carlos Sainz. B.
Yeah. Decent recovery in the end.
Oh, the fans gave Leclerc an A. I don't know if I said that or not. Carlos Sainz, B? B?
I have gone for a C for Carlos.
Whoa.
Did a good race.
Whoa.
But this is like the 4th time that he's had a big crash right at an important part of the weekend.
He's very lucky Ferrari got that car ready.
Yeah, he's so lucky.
Yeah, I think commentary was saying about how I think it was probably Paul di Resta actually that was saying about, how he's maybe overdriving the car, pushing a bit too hard at the moment and all that stuff because of I guess being in Italy and also maybe feeling the pressure from Leclerc, maybe. But I think still, where did he finish? 7th?
6th.
6th.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, 6th. I
Yeah.
think it's a B.
It's a good result, but 2 of the title protagonists did crash out, so it probably would have been 8th.
Okay.
Oh, she's
And
not
what are you
messing
going
around
for, Tyler?
today.
Notebook. Katie's notebook. I've gone for B.
Okay. The fans gave signs a B. Sebastian Vettel.
What did Sebastian Vettel do?
I know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Literally.
Nothing other than get punted by Ocon is the only thing I
Oh,
know.
and Stroll gave him the
Yeah, did you see the
rudest
start
move
with
ever
Stroll?
into Lesmo
I was
1.
like,
That was
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
very rude.
Yeah.
C.
Yeah, C.
Yeah. Katie, yeah? No?
I've gone for. See, on my notebook, I've written a D because that was one of the most Vettel just seemed to disappear. It was a very disappointing weekend for him. Like, we've seen that those Mercedes power cars are quick round here, and he didn't make the most of it at all. I know that he had some bad luck with certain things during the race, but we'll go on to Stroll. But what Stroll managed to do in finishing, I think it was 7th,
It was,
proved that he could have. It was potential to
Should have got a point.
a bit more.
Oh, yeah. It's a low C.
So I've gone for a really low sleeve. Low. That wasn't even a word.
Low
sleeve.
Low
Low C/D.
Okay, which one is it?
I'll go for a D. There we go. We're being sassy.
Doesn't matter.
We'll
Me
go
and
for-
Tommy said C.
Yeah.
The fans gave Vettel a C. Lance Stroll, I am giving him an A.
Definitely an A. That's a B from Katie.
That's a C from Katie, I reckon.
I'm beginning to wonder if we watched the same race. I went for a B for Stroll.
He finished 7th. What a hero. He beat Alonso, Russell, Ocon, Latifi, Vettel,
Yeah.
Giovinazzi, Kubica,
Okay,
Schumacher.
we'll
Beat
go
Latifi,
for-
come on. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go for an A.
I think a P7 and Aston Martin, when they've clearly been struggling, I can't give that a B.
Yeah,
He
but
finished like 9th, maybe. But
Oh my word! I've just seen what the fans have given him. 7.
yeah,
What have their fans given
the fans have given him a C,
Same as Vettel.
which is
Oh, yeah. See, this
absolute-
is what I mean. It's
absolutely
not the same.
That's an absolute disgrace. Did we watch the same race as what the fans have seen? But I'm giving him an A, straight up.
Yeah, same.
I'm going to stick with my B. I'm going to
Okay.
go with what I wrote on my piece of paper last night. I'm sticking
You
with
stick to your notebook.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the fans gave Stroll a C, which is crazy. Gasly, worst weekend ever. AlphaTauri in general.
Hmm.
I mean, D.
Yeah, great quality, but
Crashed into the back of
Wrong thing.
Ricardo.
yeah, exactly.
And then, how did he DNF the race again? I can't even remember.
Yeah, what did happen?
Did you even start
Does anyone
from the pit
remember?
lane?
Oh, yeah,
started from
no.
the pits after a system problem, and then they found it again during the
So
race,
it's
and
a
they just
problem.
brought
Yeah,
it in.
they just retired the car.
But
Yeah, I don't remember even seeing
I have
that,
to
but-
I have to grade him on essentially what he did in the sprint, which was take off his front wing and go off in
Hmm.
a very risky race.
I'm going to go with C for Gasly.
Fair dues.
Yeah.
What's the
I
notebook
think-
say, Katie? Just what's the notebook say?
I feel like last night Katie was giving one grade below for every single one.
I'm giving him a D.
Yeah, I think quality performance, Friday quality was brilliant as per. Come to expect nothing less from Gasly, but that's the second time this season that he's lost a front wing on like the first lap of something. It happened in Bahrain. It's happened here. You can't be doing that because it ruins your whole weekend. And I'm going to I can't even remember what I gave Perez for Silverstone, who kind of did the same thing and just ruined his whole weekend from a little accident in Sprint. So yeah,
Did you
I'm going to
read
give him a C
Gasly's-
because
sorry.
Tsunoda did way worse.
Fair.
That
Did you
go
read
with what?
Gasly's
You went C?
sassy comment to
No,
French TV about Perez?
no. What did he say?
He
Still
said
a
something
T.
said something along the lines of, actually, let me find the exact quote and you
Okay, so Katie, you went with a C for Gasly, is that right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I feel like I maybe should give him a D now because I'm pretty sure I gave Perez an E when we did Silverstone and he crashed into the back. And
Excellent,
crashed.
yeah.
So I'm going to go with D for Gasly. Okay, and the fans gave him a C. Yuki Tsunoda. What a weekend.
Yikes.
Big
Not improving,
yikes.
is he?
Out in Q1 again.
Most predictable thing ever. Anyway, this was Gasly's quote about Perez, about him getting re-signed to Red Bull. To sign again and to be out of Q1, finish one lap behind your teammate, and to be elected best driver of the race. Yes, that's frustrating, especially when I finished P4 in an inferior car. He was laying in.
When was that from?
After Zandvoort.
I was going to say, I don't remember.
And then he crashed.
And then he crashed, yeah. Okay. So back to Tsunoda. It's getting pretty dire now, isn't it, really?
Yet predictable.
Because
he just
his car wasn't ready for the start of the race. Is that right? His car was just
it broke, didn't it? At the start? But
so you have to base it on
quali, which
was horrific. So I'm going to give him an E. Either of you can talk? Or?
I said D, but
I've said D on my sheet.
Okay.
I think,
Okay. The fans gave Tsunoda a D. Fernando Alonso, he finished P8, continues his point scoring streak, which he loves to remind everybody on Twitter every single race weekend that he's still doing point scoring and patting himself on the back as well. I think it's a B for Fernando Alonso. The Alpine wasn't that great, but I think he did a very good job.
He did. Yeah.
B.
Get him in a good car.
Have we agreed on one?
Yeah, I think we have. And the fans gave him a B as well. So we all agree.
What?
Esteban Ocon finished P10, was a bit disappointed, thought he could finish P7, but didn't work out for him. He got beaten by Alonso. It's going to have to be a C.
Yeah.
C.
Scrapes a C for me.
Okay, and the fans gave him a C as well. Lovely. Robert Kubica finished P14. I'm going to give him a B.
Yeah, same. It's not that far off Giovinazzi. I know Giovinazzi had a problem.
A problem being in the wall. Yeah. Just a minor issue.
Yeah. And also he goes ahead of Mazepin in the title.
So Mazepin is now 21st in a 20-driver championship.
Yeah, I saw that doing the rounds a lot. But yeah, I mean, Kubica kind of alluded to it, and it looks like Kimi's back. But what a nicer way for him to finish off his F1 career with those two, I think, very solid drives.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, now we've seen how good George Russell is. I don't think you can judge him too harsh on what he did at Williams, because let's be honest, Russell's wiped the floor with Latifi as well and beaten him in qualifying every race apart from sprints. So yeah, fair play to Kubica.
Fair play to Kubica. The fans gave him a C, which I think is a bit harsh. Giovinazzi, so disappointing. It's going to have to be a C from me.
What did I give Gasly? D.
D?
Yeah, D as well for Giovinazzi. His fault, ruined. It's such a shame, because that was the race. That was his race to finish P6, and finally he's done something, and he turns in on Sainz, in my opinion, and for no reason.
Yeah, I just didn't see him, I don't think.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is a D then. Okay, no, I've changed my mind. Well done, Tommy. Katie?
Yeah, I think I've got to go. See, my notepad says C for Kubica and C for Giovinazzi. And I know that that's a bit of an unpopular opinion. But like you say, Kubica's was a solid drive. Didn't do anything to really set the world on fire. But then I do appreciate that this is only a second race in that car. And would Kimi have done any better? Honestly, I don't know with the way Kimi's season is going. So, but Giovinazzi, I want to give him a higher grade because he did well in quali, but then he did undo all of his hard work in the race, which for me evens out to be a C. But I know that, as we say every time, qualifying doesn't get you points. It's the race that gets the points.
What did you give Gasly? C? D?
I think I gave Gasly a C.
Okay.
But then he did have car issues, so that's why I couldn't continue. Whereas Giovinazzi binned it and could still continue, but didn't do much.
Okay. Good. Okay, so I don't even remember what we'd graded. So, but anyway, the fans gave Giovinazzi a C, and I think we've given him a D because me and Tommy both said D. George Russell. George Russell finished P9. Some more points for the Williams. Lovely jubbly. It is an A. Has to be.
Gone for
It has to be
D.
an A.
No. Lucky. He made all his moves. He made all his overtakes behind the safety car. Latifi would have beaten him if it wasn't for the safety car.
B it is then. Okay. I mean, fine. You've been clearly analysing George Russell's race more than I have.
He jumped everyone in the safety car. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, fair enough. Actually, I do remember now Latifi's comments about the fact that he lost out in the safety car and was ahead of George and whatever. So, okay. All right. I'll give Russell a B. Katie, what's yours?
Yeah. I'm giving Russell a B as well.
Imagine giving Russell a
seems
B.
ludicrous getting points, doesn't
in a
it?
Williams.
Yeah, that's
God, he gets
how
one
far they've
podium
come,
and all of a
so.
sudden Tommy's all cranky. I'm joking. Right. So, and the fans gave George Russell a A. So it wasn't just me that tried to do it and then changed my mind. Nicholas Latifi, are we giving him an A then?
I'm giving him a B, the same
If
grade.
he was beating George Russell?
No, because I think it's a high B still.
I'm going to give Latifi an A if he was beating George Russell on pure merit because he hasn't done it pretty much all year. And to lose out on the safety car, disappointing. So A for me. B for you. B for you, Katie, as well. Oh, I tried, Nicholas. I know you're an avid listener. The fans gave Latifi a B. Nikita Mazepin. Did he spun around his teammate, didn't he? And then retired from the race. So
Admit it was his fault. Have you watched his onboard yet? It was very ambitious.
I haven't actually. No,
was
I've seen
very
the
far back.
offboard.
If Max had done that on Lewis, then I would be saying he'd done it on purpose, basically, because he was very far back.
Okay, so taking out your teammate, not ideal. I'm going to go with an E.
Yeah,
I'm for an A as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, the fans gave him an F. Shock.
No.
And finally, Mick Schumacher obviously just was in a Haas and had that shocking spin. It's a C.
I've gone for a D for Schumacher.
Yeah, D had a bit of a bump on his idol Vettel, didn't he?
Oh, he did. Yes. No, I forgot that. So many things happened
Yeah, I know,
in this
it's
Grand
mad.
Prix. I'm downgrading again.
Yeah.
Sorry if this is annoying people listening, but Tommy is the
People trying to make the charts are like, what is that doing?
What are you doing? Right, so D. So that means we give Schumacher a D, and the fans gave him a C. Predictions for the Italian Grand Prix. Oh, geez, I just remembered. Damn, I'm good. Okay, so I went for a Norris podium. You're welcome. And at least 4 DNFs. You're welcome times 2. Give me 2 points. Oh, that is a banger. I completely forgot how incredible I was. Okay, something else?
Mine not quite so incredible. Every car starts on the same tyres for the race. Didn't happen, thank goodness. And Alonso top 5 in the race. Didn't happen, unfortunately.
Well done, Tommy. 0 points. And Katie, you're 2.
We'll go through these quickly. Strong top 5 finish in the Leclerc front row sprint quali race. Cool. Let's go to the fan ones.
Let me just remind myself. So
No,
I got
no,
2, Tommy got 0, and Katie got 0. Lovely.
To be fair,
jubbly.
the fans ones are absolute worldies.
Okay, Levicious X. Verstappen won't qualify in the top 3 for the first time this season. That was incorrect. At MXRKEN _ new winner this season.
Fair play. Fair play for that one.
Hey.
And Edek GB with Ricardo beats Norris.
I feel like the
Very
last time
good.
we had the fan prediction of new winner this season was
It was
when
Sergio.
Perez won. Yeah,
It was, yeah.
Wow.
When Perez won, I mean last year in the Racing Point.
It's okay.
Unbelievable
Incredible
scenes.
scenes.
So myself and the fans both scored 2 points, and Tommy and Katie scored none. Okay, predictions for the.
I get accused of being too boring, and I went too far the other way.
No, to be fair, mine was reasonably.
Speaking
out
of
there as well.
boring, Matt, your prediction for Russian Grand Prix.
Oh, Tommy, I love it.
Jeez. See, I love it. So mine too are Bottas on pole. That is not. I mean,
Oh,
I know he likes
No
Russia.
way. You had to go at me for saying Verstappen on pole at Zandvoort.
Yes, Bottas hasn't had a pole. this whole year, hasn't
He
he?
literally just had one this
No,
weekend.
not technically.
Oh,
Thank you. Check the statistics.
I
Katie.
hate the sprint. I hate
Okay,
it.
What about the other 12 rounds? Have we had a Bottas pole?
Yeah.
When?
Portugal?
Oh, have we?
Bottas pole position 2021.
I really freaking hope this is right.
You just play.
Bottas he's not getting Bottas on board. Yeah, no, Bottas was on pole for Portugal. Okay, one out of 12. I mean, what did he do? It's
And
still-
Bahrain.
You're right.
Oh no, sorry, that's last lap. My bad.
Yeah. So actually, for percentage plays here, that's less than 10%. Quick maths of 1 out of 12, so less than 10. And Kimi outqualifies Antonio. That's not boring. Kimi hasn't outqualified a leaf this year. So there you go. There's my two. Tommy.
I've gone for Verstappen not in the top 5
All right. So you're trying to anti-jinx yourself. So we win about 3 laps. Cool.
and 2 Mercs and a McLaren on the podium.
So can I just confirm, please, for the terms and conditions when we get into it in a couple of weeks' time? Not in top 5 in the race, qualifying, practice. Can we get clarification, please?
In the race.
Okay, perfect. Katie.
Okay, I've gone for some track limits controversy, and I've gone for the old podcast favourite, Stroll out qualifies Vettel, which is normally Matt's one.
And I get commission for that.
Track limits controversy.
You
Is
do
that
not get
going to be?
commission.
Can we get some clarification, please? Track limits controversy.
How everyone realizes how stupid turn 2 is again, and everyone goes off. And
A lot of
they
lap
put
times
that-
deleted.
Lots of lap times. Okay.
they'll put that stupid
I
barrier.
can't
in
give
that they
numbers
have
at
to
this
go
point.
through.
And the fans, Ruben GNW says Hamilton wins by passing Bottas under team orders. That's basically 1 point then.
1 point. Yeah.
S. Marconzo, Alonso podium, and Korvaxel, Checo podium. So with those 3, potentially not going to happen. We're not going to get a fan clean sweep unless Bottas lets Hamilton through for P3, and then Hamilton then goes on to win by passing Alonso and Checo. So
Could happen.
could happen. Let's see.
2021 is throwing all sorts of curveballs this year.
You never know.
That's amazing. Now, I've actually got a very interesting question. Katie, final thoughts.
Oh, you aren't. Final thoughts. Thank God the triple header's done. I'm freaking exhausted. But
Yeah.
I get to spend time with you guys on Wednesday.
For the Team WTF1
Silverstone.
track day.
Yay!
Yeah, at Silverstone. So,
And I get to see you again.
yay. And Tommy.
Yay, Sochi.
Jesus, you can tell
Um,
you're at the end of a triple header, can't you?
No, the triple header was very cool, but yeah, wow, such a shame. Sochi. Maybe I saw in the chat someone saying Sochi will do a France and surprise us. That would be the biggest surprise of 2021 for me. Forget McLaren 1-2, forget Ocon winning. If Sochi's
Sochi
good,
having more than 2 overtakes.
if Sochi's good, 2021 is
Oh, I thought you were going to be
greatest
like,
season of all
if
time.
Sochi's good, I will do X.
I will.
I'll
Do
get a
shit.
tattoo of Sochi's track layout on my forehead.
Vladimir Putin on my left cheek.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Tommy, Katie, thank you so much for joining me once again. Thank you to Team WTF1 members joining us live for this podcast as well. And use the hashtag WTF1 podcast if you want to get involved in future comments, stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. We're now going to enjoy a week away from Formula One before we then dive back into the Russian Grand Prix, where I'm sure everyone's going to be very excited about Sochi.
Can't wait.
Well, the only person will be Bottas, let's be real here. And that's it. Thank you. Goodbye.
It was such a blunt
That was
end.
very... Bye!
Bye.
Bye.
Bye!
Bye.
Ow. Frank! He knew!
He did. He heard you say bye
The
and he came in.
second!
Is
Oh, honey. He's so sweet. I
we
love
need
Frank.
to do the whose fault it was, yawn edition.
Yep.
Do I
Come on
get
then.
Frank cuddles on Wednesday?
Come on then, mate. Oh, he's coming up. Come on, it's your time to be quizzed
Your
of
time to
whose fault
shine.
it was. Remember last time it was Katie's fault.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
If
here
you
we
do
go.
this again, Frank, we're no longer friends.
Frank Specklebottom, welcome.
Ooh.
Oh, he's already
Oh, he's
done
already-
it.
Yawned.
Okay, so he knows.
He knows what to
so
do. Okay.
Was it Max Verstappen's fault? Yawn. Was it Lewis Hamilton's fault?
Oh, good boy.
So that's not going on
British?
social. Yeah.
British non-bias. Unbelievable.